Hey, it's Chaz Ross Munro, and today I want to talk to you about a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. It's about implementing new software tools or just anything new in general into your existing tech stack. So one of the things that people always come to me and ask me about is, I want to implement a CRM and I don't know where to start, or I want to use this software and I'm not quite sure where to start. The best place to start is to start with a process map. So what is a process map? A process map is really just documentation about how you intend to use the software in conjunction with your existing processes. So if you're thinking about, if we're talking about a CRM, for example, and, how leads come through, how the different teams interact with that lead, your sales team, your marketing team, and how you convert it to an opportunity and then to a project, and then how does your operations team engage with that? Having a process map that really illustrates all of that is quite helpful. So you can use a variety of tools to generate that process map. One of which is you can just use a regular PowerPoint and use shapes and everything to kind of show how that works. I've seen people do it in Excel. I've seen people use Miro. I've seen people use also Lucid Chart. So whatever you're comfortable with, just use that format. It can even be stickies on a dry erase board and then a picture of that. So the process map doesn't have to be fancy, but the reason that a process map is so good is it forces you and people within your organization to sit down and have some conversations about how you want something to work, and then to have some kind of documentation around it so that you can go back to it later and make sure that how you envision the process working in conjunction with the software is actually how it's now working. Or if you need to make tweaks or adjustments, you can do that as well. So that process map is really critical to your overall success of implementing any software tool. No matter what it is, just make sure that, and especially if it incorporates other departments, that you've gone ahead and done that map. Next thing I want to talk about is usually when you implement a new software, people are always excited about different integrations. They're like, oh, maybe we can integrate our QuickBooks into our CRM, or maybe we can, incorporate this software or that software. All well and good, but just make sure that before you do that integration, especially if it's one that costs money, a lot of times there's a lot of free integrations that come with a software package, but sometimes you have to pay for another integration. Make sure that you run some reports initially to see if the information that you want to bring in is actually worth it if you have to pay for that integration. For example, if you're using a CRM and then you want to bring in accounting software into your CRM, I know if you're doing like a QuickBooks to a HubSpot integration, you don't need to pay, and you need to have a paid license with QuickBooks and you have a paid license with HubSpot. However, there are some packages out there and some systems out there where you'll have to pay for the additional integration. And if you're going to do that, make sure that you run a report to see if there's enough data that's being sent that would be sent from one system to the next system before you pay extra for an integration that might only be transferring like 5 records a month. And you might pay $10,000 to $15,000 to do that integration. It's definitely not worth it. So before you implement, an integration, just do some checking. And again, go back to that process map, talk to your team, make sure that the amount of data that is moving from one system to the next system is actually worth the price of the integration. And then the next thing that I want to bring up, which is just the last idea for you, is to make sure that you have the time to implement whatever software you choose. Make sure you can allocate enough, of your resources in order to do that. Because I've seen a lot of implementations fail because they will buy this fancy software. They'll buy it at like the busiest time of year, and then they just don't have time to implement it, and then it kind of fails. So make sure that you set yourself up for success by making sure that you actually have time to invest in learning about your new platform before you start to implement it. And then hopefully that will help you have a successful implementation. So these are my 3 tips for you. Make sure that you have a process map. Make sure that you do some reporting and do some investigation before you do your integrations, because you might be paying too much for something that you're not going to really move that much data with. And last but not least, make sure that you have the time to do the work that you need to do in order to learn about the platform and get it operational.